Solving real-world problems using trig ratios. All right, so if you're given a word problem that represents something that could actually happen in the world, this is the process I would take to solve the questions that they're asking within these problems, all right? So I'm going to give you two different types of examples that could occur, and then I'm going to have you try three on your own. This looks a little bit different than your handout. I switched number 3 that was on your practice problems with number 1 right here. So if you would, make note of that. I switched these two problems. All right, so I'm going to do this first example up here, and then you're going to have to flip to the next page, and I'm going to do the bottom, or number 3 example, which it was the middle one, on this page for you as well. And then your practice problems will include number 1, the hilltop problem, number 2, the problem about the sun, and then number 4, the air traffic problem, all right? So just make note of that. I just rearranged a little bit of things. So, the first thing I do when I look at these problems, I look for a key word, either elevation or depression, all right? So, Diego used a theodolite, tough word to put in a video, I don't even know if I said that right, to map a region of land for his class in geomorphology. Wow. To determine the elevation of a vertical rock formation. So that's the key word I'm looking at. To determine the elevation. All right? Make note of that. Of a vertical rock formation, he measured the distance from the base of the formation to his position and the angle between the ground and the line of sight to the top of the formation. The distance was 43 meters. The angle was 36 degrees. What is the height of the formation to the nearest meter? So that's a lot of information, and it can be very confusing. I do know that this is right triangle trig, so eventually I'm going to have to draw a picture of a right triangle. I start with, so to draw this picture, because we do need to do that, I start with a horizontal line, all right? Then based off of the word I underlined, elevation, I know that elevation means going up. If you see a word that says depression, it means going down. So elevation means going up, so I'm going to draw an up angle, or an angle going vertically in the up direction. Then from there, I'm going to connect the rest of my pieces. So I'm going to draw the hypotenuse that touches that angle, and then I'm going to draw the right angle based off the hypotenuse, all right? So that's just from the keyword L. I drew a horizontal line, and I drew an up angle and connected the hypotenuse to that up angle, and then just drew the height as well, or the other side, from that word elevation. Now, each word problem will give you different pieces of information that you have to fill in from here, so that can be a challenge at times, but let's see what the next piece of information says for this one. He wants to determine the elevation of a vertical rock formation. He measured the distance from the base of the formation to his position. So, his position, I would assume, because he's by the angle that's given, 36 degrees, is right here. And then I'm assuming he's looking at this rock formation that exists over here, rock formation, all right? To determine the elevation, so how high it is, of the vertical rock formation, he measured the distance from the base of the formation, so the base is over here, to his position, and the angle between the ground and the line of sight to the top of the formation. The distance from the base to his position was 43 meters. So if the base is here and his position is right here, that distance is represented right here, and that's 43 meters. And the angle of elevation, in this case, was 36, and that's the angle we created based off the horizontal. So the question then becomes, what is the height of the formation to the nearest meter? Height is always a vertical piece, and so the height, the unknown, is this vertical side over here. Now, if you've noticed, we've set up a trig ratio that we can solve, all right? In reference to the angle, and it will always be referenced to the angle we create based off the horizontal right here. Sometimes it'll be given to you, sometimes it won't. But in reference to that angle, we have an opposite side, and we have an adjacent side in this case. So then I have to call upon my knowledge of trig functions. I can write SOHCAHTOA if I want to reference. But opposite and adjacent is tangent. So I'm going to write tangent. And in this case, we are given the degree, or the angle. So I'm going to write tangent of 36 equals the opposite, which is x, over the adjacent, which is 43. And then I just solve for the variable. So if you've noticed, probably the most difficult part about this process is drawing the picture correctly, and then setting up your trig function correctly based off of that. So just keep that in mind. But in order to solve this then, I multiply both sides by 43. So I get x equals 43 times the tangent of 36. So I can punch that in my calculator. 43 times the tangent of 36. Close up the parenthesis. And I get x to be 31.24 meters to the nearest meter. So what is the height to the nearest meter? Technically it would be 31 meters then. And that is my final answer. So again, this comes with practice, but I'm going to show another way of how I go about solving a different problem. And the hardest part with this is to draw the correct triangle and label it correctly as well. So let's try the next one. A ski run is 1,000 yards long with a vertical drop of 208 yards. Find the angle of depression in this case now, from the top of the ski run to the bottom. So I start with a horizontal line. Depression means going down. So I'm going to draw an angle that goes down. All right? And then I'm going to connect my hypotenuse to it, and then finish by drawing the right angle up there. So this is my new triangle in question based off of the word depression. All right? Then we can fill in some unknowns. A ski run is 1,000 yards long, all right, with a vertical drop of 208. Now, a ski run doesn't run horizontally, but what that means is that when you start, by the end of it, you would have traveled 1,000 yards in the horizontal. And so long is a key word for horizontal, so I know this to be 1,000. And then a vertical drop as you travel that 1,000. Vertical, the only side that's vertical on my triangle right now is 208 right there, all right? This case, we're trying to find the angle of depression. That is our unknown, so I can label that with x, from the top of the ski run to the bottom. So, in reference to the unknown angle, before it was given to us, now it's not, they give me the opposite side, and they give me the adjacent still. So I'm going to write tangent, because that's the trig function in question, opposite and adjacent. Tangent of x equals 208 over 1,000. And then we just learned this, but in order to get rid of the trig function of tangent that's next to our unknown x, I take the inverse of it, tan inverse, and I have to do that to both sides. That cancels out, so x equals the tangent inverse of 208 over 1,000. 208, and close it up. So x equals 11.75 degrees. That is my angle, and I am done. Go ahead and try the 3 practice problems that I've given you to attempt. If you didn't get that on your calculator as you're working through with me, please raise your hand and I'll come check it. Thank you.